Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to continue our WrestleMania series and review. This time we are working on WrestleMania 20, which took place on March 14th, 2004, in New York City at Madison Square Garden. The attendance for this, and excuse me, the announced attendance for this was 20,000 even, which seems strange, but that's the one they went with. The tagline for this WrestleMania is "Where it all begins again." So, per usual, we're going to go through every single match that took place at WrestleMania, going to give you a quick recap and review, and then, of course, give you a review and recap rating on the entire WrestleMania as a whole. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. The opening match of WrestleMania 20 sees John Cena making his WrestleMania debut, going up against The Big Show, who is defending his United States Championship. KB, uh, I'd like to get your thoughts here on both the match and, of course, the diss track that Cena puts out there before to kick off WrestleMania 20.
It's always a bit of a head turner when looking back at John Cena's early stages of his career, the Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick that he had. Comparatively speaking, that of modern day, it's always a bit of an eye opener and a very big blast from the past. Yeah, we'll start off with that little diss track. Honestly, just it was fun. Like I'd say, it was a little entertaining, but I think he was sort of getting into his stride as I think the further he went along with it, sort of started off a little bit, I don't know, awkward feeling, I guess you could say. And then, went into a couple of nice lines towards the very end. And the crowd was seemingly got a bit more interested as it went on, sort of thing. And he sort of upped the ante a little bit with his insults. But yeah, it was quite amusing to kick things off. We then get the Big Show come out and obviously have his have his matchup with John Cena following that one. United States title on the line. And just generally speaking, it was kind of a slow contest, and it is going to be. You got the Big Show, you got someone of his size and stature up against someone like John Cena, who isn't a small guy himself, but looks absolutely tiny compared to the Big Show. There's literally a part where they just sort of stood face to face. I say face to face. Cena's face to Big Show's abdomen, and yeah, he looks absolutely tiny compared to Big Show. He looks like a cruiserweight, so it's kind of hilarious. But yeah, it was quite a progressive, slow contest. I guess kind of sluggish in parts as well. Cena had to fight from underneath for basically the entirety of the contest. The fans, though, were firmly on Cena's side, and they were pretty hot for this one, especially with the ending as well. Got a really good pop when the match was over. And it gets a point in the contest where Cena hits an FU on Big Show, but he does kick out of it. Obviously, Cena's there in absolute shock. I think he's the first person to have kicked out of the FU at this point. And Cena, not sure what to do, eventually goes for his chain, which is in the corner, like it's on the turnbuckles, and the referee tries to stop him. He throws the chain to the mat, distracting the referee, and then during that distraction, he grabs his knucks and then smashes against the face of Big Show with those knucks. So that'll be enough to get the victory here for John Cena after another FU for the 1-2-3. So yeah, his first WWE title, title in WWE in his career, and we obviously just watched Monday Night Raw recently, where he just won his most recent one, and just literally from this to that is it's just kind of crazy. It's sort of like a come around moment, really, in this week for myself watching wrestling, and I'm probably sure you felt the same way, Nick. But yeah, just a decent start to WrestleMania. I wouldn't say it was a great match. I wouldn't say it was a bad match, but it was just a nice little feeler to get things started and to get the crowd ready to go. And they were ready with that finish. So it was a nice pop for Cena winning the title. I gave it a 6 out of 10, so not too bad, but could have been better, could have been worse. What did you make of our opener here, Nick? Big Show and Cena, did it do it for you? And what about that reaction at the end?
Yeah, as you kind of alluded to, in the year 2025, doing this particular video and review, it's kind of crazy to see the full circle, if you will, of John Cena's first title, and just now having seen him, assuming that he just won his last title. So, yeah, that's crazy to see. And I'm not the big Cena guy, near as much as you are, but still, it's just special to see, special to watch. Will always be something that I will remember. But for this, yeah, it's not the typical kickoff match for WWE at WrestleMania. But yeah, I think they were probably banking on John Cena, kind of hyping up, and I feel like he did. With that diss track, I thought it was pretty entertaining. Um, and I thought that was a good way to get the crowd involved, and I think it did work. He was pretty over, arguably one of the most over guys of the evening. So, um, even though he's dissing Big Show, it's supposed to be a face, I think. But yeah, comparatively speaking, and then it's funny you mentioned the size comparisons too. Um, yeah, I definitely had that written down as well. That John Cena is a pretty big guy himself, but just comparatively speaking, Big Show is really big here. So it just makes him look that much smaller. But then to get land not one but two FUs, uh, to that just landing those FUs in general was quite impressive in itself. But yeah, new U.S. champion John Cena. Yeah, I basically what you kind of alluded to. It wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. Not the typical kickoff kind of style match for WrestleMania. But I feel like it hit all the right notes it needed to, and obviously crowning a new champion, which this WrestleMania doesn't see a ton of, crowning a new champion, that is. So, yeah, I thought this one worked for what it was. 6 out of 10 for me as well. But with that, getting into the next match, we see our first of two fatal four ways for a tag championship. This time has La Resistance going up against Mark Jindrak and Garrison Cade, going up against the Dudley Boys and the interesting team of Booker T and RVD, who are defending their World Tag Team Championship in this fatal four way. So, yeah, like I said, the first of two tag fatal four ways for a tag title. Um, Curious to see what you thought of this one, KP.
Yeah, I bring this up every single time when we do get a matchup like this, and the stipulation of not one member of each team being legal at the same time. It's either good or it's bad. I feel like this one was sort of more towards the meh side. It was okay. It was fine. It didn't do anything special for me particularly. Um, but it was absolutely okay. Nothing special. Kind of dull for the majority of it, to be honest with you. Didn't really get much of a feel in like the early to mid stages. I felt like when RVD eventually was tagged in, the match got some much needed pace injected into it, which was quite nice. It had like a bit of a fresh feel to it at that point. But yeah, before that, it was sort of like just, I don't know, petering out into a bit of nothing. So, um, yeah, the finish was all right in the end as well. We do get a situation where after a failed 3D, Booker needs to sort of gets flapjacked instead because Devon's not there to go for this follow up. And yeah, he gets hit by the flapjack basically, and he gets back up to his feet, and he hits an axe kick on Sylvain Grenier. Before then, RVD hits a 5-star frog splash from the top to get the victory. So yeah, just a situation where I don't know, it felt like a pretty standard matchup, even though it's got like 4 different teams in it, and obviously we're on the WrestleMania stage. But I don't know, it just felt a bit more like a TV match. To be fair, it wasn't anything special from this one, but yeah, I don't know. RVD set the match alight when he came in, and that's my main highlight for this one. But besides that, it was a pretty dull kind of meh matchup. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. So yeah, nothing too great on in my perspective, and just I don't know. I guess it's kind of one of those forgettable matches, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think you said it pretty well, and we're definitely on the same page here so far to kick off WrestleMania 20. The Fatal Four Way matches either work or they don't, and this one felt like I would lean towards probably didn't. Obviously, the two big teams, as alluded to by the commentary team, the Dudleys and Booker T and RVD, definitely the two teams that you know make most happen and are surrounded by the action most of the time. Um, I thought it was interesting that the mixed video entrance of Booker T and RVD, that was interesting. Then outside of that, the actual match itself, though, if it didn't include the Dudley Boys and Booker T and RVD, it didn't really have much going on. So some pretty forgettable teams, in my opinion. I don't recall either of these teams, so they must not have been that big of a deal. But yeah, it's unfortunately just kind of over before it got started, really. And so, as you mentioned, RVD definitely the MVP of this one, and I too gave this one a 5.5 out of 10. But we did see Booker T and RVD retain. So again, that's a team I don't really recall, and so I'm not sure they worked out that well either. So, with that, moving on to the next match, we have Chris Jericho going up against Christian. It's quite the roller coaster ride for Chris Jericho, going from a main event to that felt like most people said it underperformed, going to the mid card that absolutely stole the show, to now going to face Christian, seemingly in a feud to win over Trish. So a very interesting dynamic here for Chris Jericho, and obviously Christian being on his own once again at last, being separated from his tag team here. KP, what'd you make of this one?
I think this was probably the best match so far at this WrestleMania. Obviously, still got a long way to go in this podcast. But yeah, decent matchup. Had a lot of time. Had a lot of time, to be fair. Both these men really just sort of like were given the freedom here just to really go and do their business. Um, yeah, I mean, it had a good back and forth feel to it. Maybe it was a little slow in parts, but yeah, besides that, though, I thought it was a generally pretty decent matchup. Pretty good. We get to a point in the end where both men are down in the ring, after pretty, grueling past, probably would have been about, I don't know, around 15 minutes or so, I'd say. And we then get Trish Stratus coming on down, who's very heavily involved in the build up to this one. And she would supposedly come on down to spur on Chris Jericho. Christian hits an Impaler DDT on to Jericho, which he then kicks out of it too. Stratus gets up onto the apron before getting a little bit into a Barney with Christian. Christian brings her into the ring and then throws her into the corner by the turnbuckles. She takes a bit of a like a nasty fall type thing, and Christian gets out of the ring with Jericho then going over to check on Trish Stratus in the corner. Trish, just thinking it's Christian, instinctively just throws an elbow back, lands it in the face of Jericho, and that allows Christian to have a quick moment there to roll up Jericho as he's falling backwards and to pick up the victory. So yeah, it was it was quite a decent matchup, and then we obviously get to that point with Trish coming on down and having her sort of say in the contest, and maybe feeling like she's messed up there by allowing Christian to get the win over Chris Jericho. But we then get a bit of a post-match scenario where Trish is consoling Jericho, but then she slaps him straight afterwards. Christian then hits the kill switch before heading up the ramp with Trish, and then the two share a kiss on the stage. So yeah, Trish's turn made, I guess, for an interesting little twist here. It does seem like a very Vince booking, this one, in terms of the twist anyway. We have seen, obviously, Trish Stratus do a couple of things on the WrestleMania stage, even with Vince himself, prior to this one, which was a bit of a weird choice at the time. And yeah, this feels like maybe it was off the same sort of playbook there. So it's like the very obvious, not obvious choice. Does that make sense? Maybe it does make sense. It makes sense in my head. Interesting to see what you make of that one. But yeah, with the whole Trish turning on Jericho to side with Christian after he literally had decked her on Raw pretty recently to this. Yeah, quite crazy situation. But this is Vince, classic Vince in his head, seeing this as the way to do things. The match itself, though, yeah, I thought it was decent enough. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. It wasn't anything crazy as well, but I feel like we got some better matches to come later on in the show. What did you make of this contest here and that turn from Trish?
Yeah, the storyline with Trish feels very similar to uh, Chris Jericho's kind of relationship with Stephanie with the Triple H match, I think a couple years ago now. Definitely some similarities there. And of course, Chris Jericho ends up getting, the business end for his trouble. So, yeah, but this a bit of a strange ending, and I don't recall how long that goes on with Christian, but it definitely feels like Trish was kind of just playing with them both uh, to this point. At least that's what I got from the from the pre-match kind of video hype package, if you will. But yeah, regardless, Christian getting the last laugh here, and so what I thought was a pretty good match. Both these guys obviously capable of working, and like you said, getting plenty of time to do it. So it's a pretty good match. The ending, a little strange, but for the match itself, yeah, I gave this one a 7 out of 10, which, as you alluded to, also was the highest rated match so far of WrestleMania. So let's get into the next match, which has the reunited Rock and Sock connection. Mick Foley going to Hollywood to get The Rock to come back to WWE, going up against Evolution, which at this time included Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Batista. So this one is a handicap match, 3 versus 2. KP, lots of big names here, and a kind of similar theme throughout the night, which was kind of trying to merge the new and the old. But for this one, KP, what'd you make of it?
Yeah, merging new and old together. That's quite a nice summary there. Yeah, we see Rock and Sock come back into action here, taking on Evolution, and honestly, is a decent handicap match. This one, like this one, like Christian and Chris Jericho, also had a fair bit of time. Was decent length, to be honest. Um, it was largely dominated by Evolution. It was, very much in control from the three of them, and you would expect that 3-on-2. They got a fresh man. Um, you know, and the numbers game is in their advantage, so it makes sense that they're going to be, dominant for the most part of it. We had some parts in between that, Rock and Sock got back into it. There was an especially quite entertaining segment with the Rock and Ric Flair, where Ric Flair's just looking like he's going to imitate the people's elbow, and he's doing a strut. Then Rock gets back up, and he's then imitating Ric Flair. I don't know. I found that quite entertaining. I thought I'd just quickly bring that one up. Just sort of a little bit like a comic relief, sort of in between the match there. I thought that parts of the match did drag a little bit. In all honesty, maybe it was just a bit too long for what it was meant to be doing. I don't know. Maybe that's the vibe I got from that one. But it was fine. It was decent enough. We get to a point in the end where Mick Foley looks to use the mandible claw / Mr. Socko, whatever you want to call it. And as he attempts to do that, Randy just hits an RKO out of nowhere to get the victory. So very much sort of like typically setting up for his future run where he does hit those RKOs in the most convenient of times. So yeah, just seemingly out of absolutely nothing he hit it. So it was quite well timed, to be fair. And then yeah, Evolution celebrating at the end, just quickly getting out of that ring. And we then see post match The Rock joining in with the crowd, just applauding Mick Foley. So it was a return for Mick after I think it was 4 years. I think they said since his previous match to this point. So yeah, it'd been a little while. So seeing him back in action again and putting in a decent shift here. He was involved for quite a lot of it. Absorbed a lot of the offense here by Evolution. And yeah, The Rock just playing sort of almost like a cameo in little bits here and there. Wasn't like crazily involved, but just enough to be noticed and stuff, and to be involved in some decent bits. I give this one a 6 out of 10. Just I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine, but nothing special or bad by any means necessary. Just a decent handicap match, which does seem to be so far the vibe for this show. Let's see if that changes going forward. But yeah, Nick, what did you make of this 2-on-3 handicap match?
Yeah, I really struggled with the rating on this one because it wasn't as good of a wrestling match as the last match was Jericho and Christian, which got a 7. But from an entertainment perspective, it was interesting. Obviously, these guys known for the older guys, the veterans here, are known for entertaining. But very much going back and forth where The Rock and Ric Flair felt like the most important rivalry here. Um, and the crowd dynamic was very interesting as well. Um, Even though the Evolution were supposed to be the heels here, the crowd very much did not like The Rock here, kind of continuing that, and perhaps another trendy theme here as well, because even today and later on tonight we see WWE Universe does not like part timers. Obviously, that's what The Rock is at this point. But unlike someone like, let's say, Brock or Goldberg, the Rock is at least entertaining. So the crowd was definitely kind of fighting with themselves. At least I felt like they didn't want to support the Rock, but at the end of the day, the Rock is an entertainer. So they were struggling with that dynamic. But yeah, it's very interesting. Randy Orton, just crazy to see him as young as he is here, and of course, Batista kind of bringing in that OVW talent. But yeah, this was interesting. As for a handicap match, as you kind of alluded to, I think it was better than it should have been, and it's interesting that they decided to go with a 3-on-2. I guess, but for what it was entertaining. As entertaining as a handicap match could be, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better crew to deliver a better match. But in the grand scheme of things, it was definitely more of an entertaining match than it was an in-ring classic. So although this one does have the same rating as the last one at 7 out of 10, it definitely was not for the in-ring prowess, if you will, but more so the entertainment that the likes of Ric Flair, The Rock, and Mick Foley could provide. With that, moving on to the next match, a very different dynamic that definitely does not provide a super high prowess of in-ring talent, at least showcased here. This has Sable and Torrie Wilson going up against Stacy Keibler and Miss Jackie in an evening gown match. KP, what'd you make of it?
What did I make of it? It's very difficult to really be able to give a properly critical analysis of this because there isn't much quality. In fact, there's very, very little to none at all. But I think, just generally speaking, it's called a first ever Playboy evening gown match. And I think the goal here was to basically just continue to provide a bit of eye candy for those watching. So I guess in that sense, mission accomplished. I suppose. They we get a position at the start of the matchup where it's not even the match hasn't begun yet, and the four ladies are all in the ring ready to go. And we have Sable then basically saying how they're not feeling too comfortable at the moment with their gowns on, so they'd be a bit more comfortable if they could take them off. And apparently, her and Torrie had agreed earlier on that that's exactly what they were going to do. So they do that and they strip down to their underwear, and then Stacy Keibler quickly follows. Miss Jackie is a little bit hesitant at first. She threatens to leave the ring. She's about to do so. She's convinced to get back in, and then her gown is literally ripped off of her before the match does then begin. There were a few individual moments showing each other off in this matchup. And I say showing each other off, that's basically what they were doing. They were showing each other off to the audience. And yeah, there wasn't really a lot of quality, if any, at all. Lots of different pinning techniques. You can take that how you will. But yeah, it wasn't a technical marvel, that's for sure. I gave this a 1 out of 10. I think that might even be a little generous. I'm not too sure. I'm interested to see what you rated of this one. But yeah, 1 out of 10 I feel like is probably as high as we're gonna get here from this. But yeah, it was just a bit of eye candy for the guys. I'm pretty sure that's basically what they tried to go with here, and yeah, I guess mission accomplished in that sense. But Nick, what did you make of this one? It's very difficult to really give a proper review of this one because it is obviously very different to what we normally do watch.
Yeah, there's definitely a market for this. I just I don't think when it comes to wrestling and all of that that it is really for us, at least at this point in our lives. Maybe at one point in our lives we liked this when we were younger lads, perhaps. But at this point it is not for us. But that being said, yeah, every year we watch WrestleMania, I'm thinking, we'll move on from this era of kind of women. You see them put on decent matches, like the last couple of WrestleManias have put on decent women's wrestling matches. And then every time you think we kind of turn the page from, this, we quickly turn back just a bit to get basically some cheap crowd reactions, and I think that's exactly what this kind of serves to do. Just to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit, KP and I debated putting this match on the card to begin with, so that should tell you everything you need to know. Sable becoming the first woman to win 3 matches at WrestleMania. So there you go. There's something to make this match worthy of reviewing. I gave this match a 2 out of 10, which is where I start every match. And then I felt like it didn't really feel like a wrestling match. So I too going to give this one a 1 out of 10, just because I have no idea what else to get it, and if it were up to me, probably would have gave it a non-rating, but then that messes up everything else in terms of overall rating. So a bunch of mumbo jumbo there, but yeah, Sable and Torrie Wilson to get the win here. But in the grand scheme of things, this one doesn't feel like it has much of a lasting impact at all. So with that, we will swiftly move on to the next match, which is dubbed the Cruiserweight Open. It has the likes of Chavo Guerrero, Nunzio, Jamie Noble, amongst others, including Akiro, Funaki, Shannon Moore, Ultimo Dragon, Billy Kidman, and Rey Mysterio donning yet again another Marvel outfit, or excuse me, DC outfit, continuing his superhero outfits there. But yeah, this one was different. I thought that for sure. But in terms of good, what did you make of this one, KP?
Yeah, sit back. This is a bit of a lengthy one here, as I'm going to go through everything that happened. So first and foremost, yeah, I'd say this one was kind of meh. It wasn't really. doing anything for me for the most of it. Nothing too important of note actually happened for a large part of the contest. There were some nice moments. It was high flying, you'd expect that, very high paced. A lot of these guys are bringing some really nice, cruiserweight sort of style wrestling to the matchup, which is obviously what you would want to see. But yeah, that's obviously, pretty much taken for granted anyway. You'd expect that from these type of matches. Let's go through sort of how everything took off. So we do start off with Ultimo Dragon and Shannon Moore, and that results in Ultimo Dragon getting the pinfall over Shannon Moore, sort of like a sliced bread style maneuver from Ultimo Dragon, Salida del Sol, if you will, type thing. Then we have Jamie Noble coming in, and he submits Ultimo Dragon in quite a nice sort of like a guillotine style maneuver here. Jamie Noble then pins Funaki basically instantly. Funaki goes for this crossbody from the top, and Jamie Noble just reverses over and puts his weight onto Funaki and is enough to cover him straight away. So he's in the match for all of about 4 or 5 seconds, really, if that. Jamie Noble then takes out Nunzio, but this is by count out after Nunzio's sort of on the outside of the ring for too long. And obviously does get counted out in the end. I think he just gets dropped on his face at ringside. Kind of sells it quite spectacularly, hilariously. And then, yeah, Jamie Noble gets back into the ring and the count out victory is awarded to him, so he continues. We then get Billy Kidman coming on in, and he gets a victory over Jamie Noble and ends up pinning his shoulders down to the mat for the 1-2-3. That sees him then go 1-on-1 then against Rey Mysterio. When Rey Mysterio comes in, the match does feel a little bit better at this point. Like, everyone's brought their own sort of pace and energy into this one, but Rey Mysterio, you can tell he's just a level above most of the other guys in this ring. Maybe Ultimo Dragon was the closest to that. I felt Billy Kidman did a decent job as well, but when Rey came in, it really just took up another notch for me. So yeah, Rey comes in, and he does end up taking out Billy Kidman. Before then, he goes 1-on-1 with Tajiri. Tajiri looks to hit the poison mist on Rey Mysterio, and his his confidant, Akio, he's up on the apron at the time, sort of holding back Rey Mysterio. And as Tajiri goes for the poison mist, Akio manages to lose hold of Rey Mysterio. He gets out of the hold here, and Tajiri's poison mist actually hits Akio instead. So that renders him out of action. Tajiri then gets rolled up by Rey Mysterio. And Akio is not able to compete due to the poison mist, so it then goes straight to Chavo Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Tajiri, not happy with the elimination, does lash out on Rey, taking him down. Chavo almost picks up a quick victory over Rey Mysterio, but he does kick out at 2. And then, yeah, we then get to a point where it's just Rey and Chavo, just there's no one else really involved, except for Chavo Guerrero Sr., who is at ringside here supporting Chavo. And there's a point where Chavo goes for a cover on Rey Mysterio. He sort of he reaches his hands out, and then Chavo Guerrero Sr., he puts his hand out as well, and Chavo is able to use Sr.'s hands as leverage to get the victory, just sort of like in a sneaky, dirty way. So we do have Chavo retain his Cruiserweight Championship here at the end of this contest. He does get the victory here in this open Cruiserweight Championship contest. And like I say, it was okay. Like I say, for the most of it, it just felt like they were going through the motions, quickly getting those eliminations in, setting up for what was, I guess, really the main part of it, which was Chavo and Rey. I guess Tajiri played a decent part in it as well. But yeah, I felt like when it was sort of Rey coming on in, then it started to feel a little bit bigger and better towards those late stages. You could tell the bits earlier on were basically just filler, pretty much. But yeah, it was fun for what it was, but it just wasn't particularly great or good. I gave this one a 4 out of 10. Nothing too special for me, and just felt like they were going through the motions more than anything really in this one. What did you make of this Cruiserweight Open, Nick? Was it a success in your opinion, or just one that you didn't really vibe with either?
Yeah, these matches are difficult. I like the concept of it, but with that concept kind of lays the issues as well. You have to have someone to go through, essentially. It's same with kind of the gauntlet match of current day. Um, there's it's a bit predictable. There's gonna have to be a few quick eliminations, and there's gonna have to be a dark horse, and there's gonna have to be someone who lasts longer than they should. And this match kind of does all of that in pretty quick fashion. I feel like this was probably the match that typically would have kicked off the show, as the cruiserweights typically have been lately. at least in our WrestleMania series for WrestleMania. But yeah, to have Chavo kind of successfully defend, is impressive in itself. But again, that seems to be a theme for WrestleMania 20 is people holding on to their titles. In the grand scheme of things, though, this one did have some high flying action, as you would expect, but it doesn't really leave any other lasting impression other than just a few people, as you kind of already glossed over, that made a somewhat memorable appearance, but for the most part, not really much to go off of here. I guess when a 5 out of 10, like I said, it felt like it had potential, but as you kind of mentioned too, as well. I felt like they were just going through the motions for a lot of it. So, unfortunately, not too much to go by there. With that, we move into the next match, which I know will be a very interesting conversation with the two of us. This one having a Goldberg going up against Brock Lesnar with Stone Cold as the special guest referee. So, a couple of interesting bits on this one. 12 days before the event, Lesnar announced that he was quitting WWE. Felt like it was just too much. Couldn't take it. It was too much on his body, too much on his mental state, and all of that. Which, interestingly enough, they may have impacted the winner, but because before Vince knew that, he pitched Brock Lesnar to beat Goldberg in 30 seconds. You can see the pettiness just still very apparent in Vince's booking with the WCW Wars. And just I thought interesting the overall kind of tone for this match going into it. You have the hype guy for WCW at the height of that company. You have the height of WWE's Attitude Era and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then you kind of have the new face of the company, or at least they were definitely booking him as that in Brock Lesnar. So a very interesting dynamic here, KP, in terms of the match itself and kind of the atmosphere for the crowd here were very raucous as well. What'd you make of it all?
Yeah, I will be talking about the crowd in a couple of moments because of a couple of interesting chants they were saying throughout this contest. Yeah, this one, when you put a match like this in front of the two of us, I'm expecting both of us to be very critical of it, and I'm sure you will be as well. Here's my take on this one. This was boring as hell. This was unbelievably slow. And honestly, for the most part, especially the early stages, it's more of a test of strength, really. The two of them just basically I don't know, just really slowly working each other down. And I say really slowly working each other down. That's probably too quick of an analysis, to be fair. I'm probably being a bit generous with that. It just was literally them two just seeing what they can do to each other and seeing who is the stronger man. That was the majority of the first bit. It's dull as dishwater, this match. Genuinely speaking. I don't I don't really know what to say that's good about this one. The crowd, they were good. They were saying how boring this one was as well, so they agreed with me on that sense, I suppose. And even I think it's Jerry Lawler, correct me if I'm wrong, that's part of the commentary team for this match. We had split commentary for the course of the night, Raw taking Raw, SmackDown taking SmackDown. Yeah, I think it was Jerry Lawler on commentary for this particular match. I'm pretty sure he says at one point, there was actually something that decent happened in the match. I think it was a spear from Goldberg. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But he then says, well, that wasn't boring. So for even him to be saying things like that on commentary was just crazy to me. Like, normally they try and avoid that, or they try and mask over it. They say, like, they try and pretend like, oh, this crowd are chanting something different. Jerry Lawler played right into his hand. He knew what was being chanted, and he knew exactly what that they were being right about it. That was the scary thing. We get to a point in the contest here where Goldberg kicks out of an F5 from Lesnar, eventually gets up and spears Brock Lesnar before then hitting a jackhammer to get the victory. So, yeah, like you said, Lesnar beforehand announcing that he was going to be leaving. Well, after the match had ended, Lesnar was getting serenaded with goodbye chants from the crowd because they knew that he was heading off and they were happy that he was going to be going, basically. And he then flips the crowd off, flips off Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin stuns Lesnar, and then he's celebrating with beers in the ring as he normally does, alongside Goldberg at first, and then Austin then stuns Goldberg, which just honestly great decision. The post-match sequence was the best part of this whole thing, and I loved it. Besides that, though, the match was god awful. It was so boring, it's so dull, and yeah, I don't know how people can expect to can expect to really enjoy this one. It's just a meaty contest between two big guys, and it didn't really do anything else except for that. I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. The special guest referee in Austin didn't really have to do anything. A couple of two counts that he sort of was convincing the two guys that was definitely two and not three. But besides that, pretty standard performance from Austin here as the special guest referee as well. So yeah, 2.5 out of 10. I don't know. That's as high as I can give it on this one, to be fair. What did you make of this one, Nick? It's not our cup of tea normally, is it? But yeah, can you find some light anywhere in this one?
No light that you already haven't kind of pointed out, but I just thought the dynamic between the three was interesting. Just realizing kind of the magnitude of what this could have been. As much as we dislike two of the three guys in this match, you can't argue that they didn't have an impact on the business, good, bad, or indifferent. Conversation for another time. But when the crowd at WrestleMania expects something good and you give them this, they're going to let you know about it. And I feel like they were rightful, in doing so. So, yeah, something that you haven't added. No, I got nothing. We don't care for Brock. We don't care for Goldberg. Never really have, and I think never probably will. Goldberg isn't capable of doing much else, and at this point, Brock was clearly being punished for leaving. So yeah, kind of just the two guys I think at the point in their career, maybe at a different point in their respective careers, they could have put on a better match. But honestly, from what I've seen, probably not the case either. So with that, yeah, I think the only reason this gets a 2 out of 10 from me is because it was slightly better than the women's Playboy evening gown match earlier. So without that match, it probably would be lower than a two. But it was a moment, I guess. With the three guys in the ring. So there was that. But as you alluded to as well, definitely the most entertaining by a country mile is Stone Cold delivering the stunners and to all participating members here. So with that, swiftly moving on to the second Fatal 4-Way tag match. This time for the WWE Tag Team Championship. So seeing those tag titles split up. This one will take on World's Greatest Tag Team, which has Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas going up against Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, Basham Brothers, and APA. So, similarly speaking to the other match, KP, you think this one was better or worse, and how'd you rate this one?
So yeah, it had a pretty similar vibe to that of the first one. Obviously, when you got two matches that are basically doing the exact same thing, you are going to get some similarities involved there. This one was okay. It felt pretty quick. Like, just generally speaking, the pace was quite high, and just it seemed to kind of a flyby. To be fair, for me, I'm not sure what you made of that particular sort of pace of the contest, but there were some decent tag moments here and there. I thought it had some nice flowing moments. Nothing amazing, but it was okay. If I had to say, I'd probably say this one was ever so slightly better than the other one, but honestly, not really that much enough to put it higher. I give this one a 6 out of 10 as well. So just sort of quickly getting my rating in there. But yeah, I mean, it was decent enough. Like, we have JBL hitting Doug Basham with a clothesline from hell. Absolutely destroys him with the move. I always love JBL's clothesline from hell. It's brilliant. And yeah, then JBL gets dealt with by Rikishi. Rikishi hits his Banzai drop, and that'll be enough for him and Scotty 2 Hotty to get the victory here over well, the Bashams, who would be pinned, and obviously the other tag teams as well, being the world's greatest tag team and the APA. Post match, we do get a little bit of a celebration from both Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty. They have a little bit of a dance celebration post match, and yeah, just that basically just sums the whole thing up. So yeah, 6 out of 10 from me. It felt okay. Like, maybe it was ever so slightly better than the other one, but there were a couple of moments which were quite nice. But besides that, it's a pretty unforgettable as well. To be fair, nothing truly spectacular happening here, and nothing too noteworthy either, I suppose, to be honest. But yeah, just a decent tag team matchup. What did you think comparatively speaking to the other one, Nick? Do you agree with me, or do you maybe think this is a little bit better, or maybe worse? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to be honest, I was shocked that Shelton Benjamin was still part of a tag team. In my head, he had already separated at this point, but I guess that doesn't come until a bit later in the year. But I definitely don't remember them dubbing themselves the world's greatest tag team. To me, they'll always be Team Angle. But yeah, you kind of mentioned it pretty well. I think you could have taken out APA and Rikishi and Sky Too Hotty and put them in the other match, and I think you would have had a decent match. But this very much felt like a copy paste scenario. You kind of hit all the greatest hits. Of course, you have Rikishi hitting a stink face, which apparently is a WrestleMania tradition now, or at least they alluded to that. Um, yeah, it was pretty short, comparatively speaking, and yeah, another retained title. So yeah, I really don't have anything else to add. I thought that I actually liked the other one a smidge better, but by no means saying it was good. I think I gave the other one a 5.5, and I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Again, I think you could have at least had a different, because if we're watching this match live, you've already seen a match that felt really similar to this one. You basically did the exact same thing to the other tag match, and for the other tag titles, you're doing the same thing here. So it felt like you're kind of getting same thing over again. So naturally, the first one's probably going to be better received, and I think that's really the only difference, at least for me. But yeah, you get the Rikishi Scotty Too Hotty dance break afterwards. That was fun for what it was. But outside of that, I don't think much more to talk about here. With that, we'll move on to the next match, which is a women's match. Definitely better than the nightgown match. Interesting fact here, Molly Holly volunteered to have her head shaved just to get on that Mania card. So, yeah, this is, for me, definitely felt like a step back from our previous women's matches at WrestleMania, the good ones I'm referring to, of course. But still a decent contest and obviously vastly better than the nightgown match. KP, what'd you make of this one?
Well, volunteering to have your hair shaved off just to get on the WrestleMania card is absolutely wild to me. Just generally speaking, that's crazy. The lengths that these women had to go through to get these opportunities back then was just crazy. This was kind of a meh match. It was really, really quick. Sort of victory just came out of absolutely nowhere. Was a surprise to myself. Seemingly was a surprise to both commentary and the crowd as well, because no one really expected it. There was a bit of a delayed sort of reaction once this one was over, and then everyone realized that Molly Holly is going to get her head shaved, and then people were like, "Oh, okay," and then they've realized what was going to happen next. The match was just okay at best, to be fair, in my opinion. Molly goes for the Widow's Peak on Victoria. Yep, that is the right way round. I can confirm. So looking to steal Victoria's move. Victoria, though, knowing the move very, very well, reverses it into a backslide, and that would be enough to get the victory. So yeah, there wasn't even like a big move that led up to this point. It was just a backslide. So yeah, off an attempted steal of a finisher. So quite crazy, really, with this one. But yeah, just generally speaking, the part afterwards is the biggest part, I guess we'll say, because Molly attempts to run post match, realizing what's just happened and what this means, and she sort of heads to the stage, and she then tries a sort of like a sneak attack on Victoria, and she actually puts her in the chair and looks to try and shave her head, but the cutters aren't turned on. Apparently, they're not working for some reason. I'm guessing the barber just didn't turn them on. I think one of the commentators did say, thankfully, that he didn't turn them on first. And then Victoria is able to sort of turn things around during this whole little debacle with the cutters, and she then takes out Molly Holly. Literally puts her in this chair, and it's almost like an executioner's chair. It's got like these little braces on the arms where sort of like holds down Molly Holly. She literally can't move. She's not able to. And yeah, she then obviously activates the cutters and starts trimming off her hair. So yeah, it was it was more about the post-match situation, really, to be honest. Obviously the situation beforehand, the matchup was very quick. It was a bit just bang average and didn't really do anything at all. But we did get Molly Holly having a haircut afterwards, which I guess is a moment. So I guess we can say that for sure. And just quickly, I found this bit hilarious. The fact that we then had the next match taking place soon afterwards, which would involve Kurt Angle. He makes his entrance first, and he is literally walking past Molly Holly still getting her haircut during that entrance. And I just couldn't help but think of when Kurt Angle lost his hair and how he's probably thinking about that situation as well as he's walking past. So yeah, I don't know. That just sort of like tied in quite nicely for me. I quite enjoy that. Find it quite funny. But yeah, the match itself not very great. I gave it a 4 out of 10. But the moment itself afterwards was kind of cool. I will say that. What did you make of this one, Nick? It was more about the haircut, to be fair, wasn't it? But what did you rate of the matchup itself as well?
So interesting enough, this is the third match in a row where we're sitting here talking about the post-match shenanigans being more memorable than the actual match. So not ideal, and the fact that Molly Holly had to shave her head to get on the match or on the card, going up against Victoria. Meanwhile, you have another women's match who are wrestling in bra and panties. So there's a dynamic here that just obviously is as a thing of the past now, but. At one point, just the state of this women's division. Molly Holly and Victoria both, I feel like are deserved more time here. Maybe they could have taken it from that other nightgown match, perhaps, just an idea. But and then you have King, who is still prime in his attitude era, just talking about has JR talking about the color of her preferred panties while these women are trying to put on a decent wrestling match. So just this one's just a mess all over the place. And as you alluded to, the most entertaining aspect of it was because someone got their head shaved. So make of that what you will. Like I said, it's definitely a step down from the decent content we had seen from the women in the prior years. Couple last 2 or 3 years, I think, prior. But yeah, 4.5 out of 10 from me. It sees Victoria retain her women's championship. With that, we quickly move into a much needed kind of change in pace. We see Eddie Guerrero defending his WWE Championship up against Kurt Angle, obviously two of the all-time greats. KP, what'd you make of this one?
Finally, we get a chance to talk about a great match. This one was really good. Yeah, it was a much needed sort of change in quality compared to what we've seen up until this point. The first one really that I think anyone's going to sort of talk about going forward for the right reasons anyway. Yeah, just two very talented competitors going back and forth throughout the entire contest. Very good technical display and just a really fun match to watch with a unique and good finish. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite finishes, I think, in wrestling, just generally speaking. It's just an absolute classic ending to a contest. So first and foremost, you got Eddie Guerrero. He hits a frog splash on Kurt Angle, and this is probably one of the latest kickouts I think we'll ever see in wrestling. Like I'm rating it as like a 2.999 kickout. It was that close to a 3. And yeah, Angle then gets up to then lock in an ankle lock on to Eddie Guerrero, and that sort of forces Eddie to obviously struggle for a little bit. He then manages to eventually get Angle to the outside, sort of like knocking him down outside of the ropes. And Eddie sort of in the ring. This is where it gets great because he starts untying his boot, and he then like loosens it up a lot before then baiting Angle back into the ring. So he's sort of there, like as almost as if like waiting for Angle to get back up, and then it's like he realizes, oh, Angle, oh, I'm in trouble here. I'm not good. My ankle's done. And yeah, he baits him in. The ankle lock gets locked in once more, and when that ankle lock is seized in, Eddie sort of gets to a position where he's able to sort of like kick off his boot that he's untied. Angle, very confused by it, then gets rolled up by Guerrero, and using the ropes as leverage as well during this roll up is enough to get the victory. I know you're not so much keen on roll up wins, Nick, but is this one that you can at least sort of think, you know what, actually this was a pretty classic finish in this one? So I'm very interested to see what you make of this particular finish, because I know it's not your normal style. But yeah, just generally speaking, though, what a what a way to win the contest. And after a really good back and forth technical display from two men who are utterly brilliant in the ring, yeah, this was a much needed match because honestly, WrestleMania to this point was not a fun watch. It really, really wasn't. Not for the good reasons, anyway. But yeah, love this contest, love the finish. Just two guys doing what they do, and just having a great match as well. 8.5 from me as a total for this one. It's not like the greatest match I'll ever see, but it was a very, very good one, and it was, my God, much needed for this particular WrestleMania at this time. So yeah, just full of quality and was really, really good. What did you make of this one, Nick? How good was it in your opinion? And please, please let me know what you thought of that roll-up win.
Yeah, roll up wins are not my bag typically, but as you kind of alluded to too, this is one of the most iconic ways to win. Eddie Guerrero doing it like no one else does, making a roll up pin and a win seem meaningful and entertaining. So props to him for that. Losing his boot, tying his feet around the ropes. I think that was probably kind of needed because I think in terms of just technical wrestling ability, while both these men are one of the best to do it, I think Angle just kind of has that kind of edge on Guerrero. So making it storyline makes sense as well because it's just I think that was the right call. Yeah, this is as you kind of said too. At this point in WrestleMania 20, very much needing a replacement to the meh feeling that we were getting. So perhaps rating a bit higher than I would have otherwise. But these two guys are just like I said, two of the best. And this match just kind of shows you if you're a fan of the technical graps, this is a match that we would obviously recommend for you. I give this one a 9 out of 10. Again, a bit higher than yours, but perhaps just because of what we've seen. But and I wouldn't say the best of either of these guys' career, but definitely a great technical bout that sees Eddie Guerrero retain once again. So this is just kind of a technical clinic. That's kind of what I would describe this as, with a funny finish. Yeah, this one doesn't bother me as much as the other ones do. Of course, if you're not seeing it, 3 times a week, it's a little less damning. So with that, let's get into the next match, which has Kane going up against a returning dead man, The Undertaker, his brother. This, of course, after Kane buried The Undertaker, I believe at Survivor Series, buried him alive. But as we know, those things do not typically hold. And we see a returning pallbearer with The Undertaker as well, returning to his dead man gimmick. Interesting factoid here. WWE paid for Paul Bear to get a gastric bypass surgery to get him to return to WWE. So I've heard some crazy stipulations, but that one's definitely up there. Whatever it is to get you back, I suppose. But the iconic entrance for Taker isn't quite the same without Paul Bearer, and I think having that here was a good decision. But in terms of the actual match, Undertaker versus Kane, we've seen it before. We'll see it again. But KP, what'd you make of this one?
Yeah, you set up the mention of the entrance there quite nicely. The entrance, I feel, is absolutely iconic as hell for this one. Um, just generally speaking, it felt like a really big moment. Obviously, Kane thinking he's got Undertaker, dead and buried, and then he comes back, and obviously, with this slightly amped up version of the dead man from previous. Yeah, just felt like a really big moment, and commentary sort of sold it ridiculously well. The entrance alone was just enough to sell it as well. It was just a really well done thing. It just worked. But generally speaking, the match was decent. It was very physical. It was assertive. You got that sort of hatred between both men throughout the contest. They did a great job of displaying that whilst they were going about their business. Yeah, both men looked pretty good, to be fair. Both men looked great in their own rights. Kane had some dominant moments. Undertaker, just turning things around towards the end, especially, but also looking dominant in parts throughout the contest as well. It was just pretty back and forth, and like I said, very, very physical by both men. It wasn't the longest match by any means, but it was good for what it was. I think it probably could have had another few minutes in this one. It seemed to go by pretty quickly, but yeah, it was pretty good, to be fair. I quite enjoyed it. You get to a point where in the end, Kane hits a choke slam, starts thinking that he's won the contest until Undertaker rises up in his iconic sitting up style. He then choke slams Kane before hitting the Tombstone Power Driver, and that'll be enough to get the victory for the Undertaker. So a successful return for Taker. He extends his winning record here at WrestleMania, still being undefeated. And yeah, I thought it was a decent matchup. I think they had a previous contest in this WrestleMania run, and I feel like that one was better than this one. But this one was pretty iconic in like certain ways, so I don't think it was bad at all by any means necessary. Just wasn't quite as good as their previous encounter on this stage. I give it a 7 out of 10. Like I said, probably to do with the match length. If it was a bit longer, maybe it would have been a bit higher up. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. I think that's pretty decent, but that's basically as high as I can suppose give it for this particular one that we saw. So, what did you make of this one? Yeah, the whole presentation of Undertaker was especially very, very good. Did you agree with that one? And then obviously with the match itself being maybe a little short, do you share the same sentiments, or do you think it was pretty much nailed on the head? What did you make of this one, Nick?
Yeah, it was far from Taker's worst match. Of course, he's had some stinkers for sure in his WrestleMania career to this point. And then Kane, I think I've kind of praised him in the past, and that I think he is one of the most underrated talents consistently, especially for a big man, because in the great scheme of things, big men don't typically work great, good, fast pace, or uh, they very much have a style, obviously, and I feel like Kane's kind of the exception to that rule. Taker as well to an extent, but definitely Kane is very underrated in my opinion. So enough of me singing his praises for the actual match. Yeah, I felt like it wasn't definitely wasn't the worst of Taker's streak, but definitely wasn't the best either. Yeah, I think a few more minutes obviously would have helped, and I think we do say that quite a bit. We haven't said it as much, but there was definitely a time, especially in the earlier WrestleMania days, where we would say that all the time. But I feel like this one could have benefited, just made it a little more dramatic, if you will. But for what it was, I feel like it was good enough. Kane selling the fact that Undertaker was still here, I thought that was great. And then to have Undertaker land the Tombstone pile driver to get the win. Yeah, really no issues for me. Just like I said, wasn't the best, wasn't the worst, but it was pretty decent, I thought, and still probably towards the upper echelon of Undertaker's WrestleMania matches at this point in his career, going from 11 to 12 here, sees the Undertaker get the win over Kane. So I gave this one a 7 out of 10 as well. We've been quite on in sync with a lot of our ratings here today. But yeah, 7 out of 10 from me, and yeah, 12 match win streak for Taker. With that, getting into the main event, which is a topical one. This one sees HBK going up against Chris Benoit, going up against Triple H for that World Heavyweight Championship. KP, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, naturally speaking, it is going to be quite topical, but take it for what it was as a triple threat matchup, main event of WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship. I thought it was very, very, very good. And I think we had actually watched this one previously this year when we were working on another project of ours. And yeah, just an opportunity to go back and watch it again. And honestly, love it. Just absolutely love this contest. It's a very, very good one. It's just a great match between all three men. Really good main event. So much quality from start to finish, and just a well worked match. It just flowed tremendously well. There's nothing really bad about it in that sense. Like the flow was just perfect, and it was a fun watch as well. The crowd were really hot for it as well. They were really, really into it. They were showing some love for Chris Benoit. Just generally how things are built up to this contest and just the way it was flowing along as well. They were sort of amping up that respect and just wanting him to get the victory in the end. And that is what he managed to do. So, just playing out how the match did go down at the end, we see Benoit sending Michaels to ringside after evading a sweet chin music. Triple H looks to hit Chris with a pedigree, but Benoit counters into a crossface. And this is a little bit now. We probably get about a minute and a half of the crossface. Triple H, during this, does attempt to fight through, but Benoit rolls back over, keeps the crossface locked in, and that would eventually see Triple H tapping out here to Chris Benoit. But this match really had its physical toll on both, especially Triple H and Shawn Michaels, both bleeding from the face. Michaels, especially quite early on, just absolutely just broken apart his face, just blood all over the place after bouncing off the ring post. And we then obviously see Triple H sort of joining that later on after being at ringside, taking a bit of a knock. And we see both of them absolutely bloodied, just it's everywhere at this point, but it's pretty iconic as well in that sense. And then you got Benoit, who's obviously, maybe just sort of avoided that particular damage to his face. And yeah, he just comes out clutch in the end with that submission victory via the crossface. And it's a really thoroughly enjoyable matchup. So I think I mentioned earlier this year when I watched it at that time, it was the first time I'd watched it. And now this is the second time. And it's just very, very good. I can see why it's sort of like held as, a really good WrestleMania matchup. Obviously, with their, it is topical. It does feature somebody who, a lot of people don't tend to talk about too often. But just generally speaking, the match itself, talking about that alone is very, very thoroughly enjoyable. So, yeah, just a great contest between all three men. And we do get that post-match celebration with Eddie Guerrero and Benoit, who are obviously very close friends. And it's sort of played to this point earlier on in the night where they have a bit of a backstage conversation saying, at the end, it's going to be both of us standing tall with our championships high. And it's going to be a great moment. And it was a great moment for the two of them. So, yeah, that obviously meant a lot to both men. And, champions at the very end of the show. So, Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Great contest. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I just think my only slight criticism, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the year as well, is that I feel like Shawn Michaels was out the ring for too long at the end, and I feel like he could have probably come back in um to sort of like play some sort of part in those very last moments. At least sort of have him, maybe crawling into the ring and just not quite getting there in time. That could have been something. But yeah, for me, just a really, really good match. 9.5, absolutely solid. Obviously, I know how much you love this match, Nick. So fire away. What did you make of this one? Like, as if I don't know.
Yeah, no, you make a good point about Shawn at the end there. I think the triple threat matches are always kind of tricky in that someone has to be on the outside of the ring, and if you're watching that person, it can be a bit awkward sometimes. Um, but I don't feel like it takes away from the match, or at least for me. Obviously, this is a like you said, a topical one, but just kind of stick to what the match was, what the match meant to me. Even when I first watched it, obviously that series that we alluded to earlier, where we recommended one of our favorite matches to each other. This was, of course, one of mine, and still to this day is one of my favorites of all time. Just getting into kind of the few of the happenings here. That boo for Triple H when he hit that pedigree um, very much reminded us of the Booker T match where he hit the pedigree, he rolls away, and then it feels like a good 30 seconds, which I think is what it was in the Booker T match, where he comes over to get the cover. And I'm sure people thinking in the crowd were like, oh God, here we go again. Um, Triple H had his shovel out, but alas, that was not the ending. As you said as well, Benoit super over here, getting most of the chance throughout the night, and I think him and Cena are probably the most over. I'd probably give the nod to Benoit here, just getting chanted throughout the entire match. Let's go, Benoit. I think probably just desperate to see Triple H lose, probably played a part in it as well. Triple H obviously being known for always being around the title scene at this point. But yeah, this one was a ton of fun. From Benoit beating Triple H instead of Michaels, I thought that was always a plus as well. Beating Michaels wouldn't have been as impressive at this point in his career, but to beat Triple H, I think was that more impressive. From the joining of Eddie and Benoit at Madison Square Garden with the confetti, it's just a moment. It's just a moment that we try to separate from the real life happenings. But in terms of what happened here and what we got here at WrestleMania 20, will always have a special place in my heart. This is also the first ever WrestleMania match to end main event to end in a submission. So for whatever that's worth as well, something different. One more thing to add to what made this such a special moment. Obviously, it probably goes without saying, but of course, I gave this rating 10 out of 10. Just it will always have a special place in my heart. So, yeah, unfortunately, it has been dimmed a bit by most, but for what it was in the moment here, it was an all-time moment. But with that, WrestleMania 20 in the books. KP, hit us with your overall best and or worst matches, and of course your overall rating for WrestleMania 20, and we'll wrap this one up.
It's a really strange feeling, WrestleMania, this one. Just generally speaking, there are so many matches that are just sort of here and there, like not anything really too special to really go through. There are a couple of matches that are very, very good, but then besides that, it's just a lot of mediocre stuff. So obviously, my highlight of the show is the main event, and Chris Benoit getting that victory over Triple H and Shawn Michaels for the world title, and then obviously Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero's match for the WWE Undisputed Championship. Yeah, both of those title matches were just very, very good. And just were just great to watch, generally speaking, very, very fun. And then you've got the other side of the coin, which is, matches that very much undelivered and just weren't really anything special to watch, like, the the evening gown match and Goldberg against Brock Lesnar. So I think there are very much, for the good matches that we also got some really bad matches and then a lot of in between. So generally speaking, the rating works out as sort of like somewhere in the middle, and that is what it happened to be. So for me, it came out as an overall average between all my matches as a 5.5 out of 10, which honestly is down there with one of the lower ones for WrestleMania this series in the series. which is quite surprising because you look at the card and you think it could have been probably a lot better than what we would given. But yeah, it's a shame. It is what it is, and unfortunately, just a lot of the matches were a little bit disappointing. Didn't really leave much to really go through, unfortunately, and just didn't really have any iconic bits. But there were a couple of matches that obviously had those moments in. Just it wasn't across the whole of the card, which is my main sort of gripe there. But yeah, generally speaking, some of it was quite fun, but a lot of it was just unfortunately not so much. Nick, what did you make of this WrestleMania? It is kind of a difficult one to really discuss because obviously it does have good moments, but it also has some pretty non-spectacular ones.
So we had a streak, I felt like, with WrestleMania 17 through 19 that definitely was a step up from the prior ones. And in that it didn't have everything, let's put it this way, the bottom was a lot higher than most of the WrestleManias that were before it. But back with this one kind of matches what we hit before 17 in a large part, where the highs were very high, but then the lows were very low as well. So, by definition, this one being a very hot and cold mania, I think you take out the main event, you take out Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle match, I think largely a pretty forgettable WrestleMania, in my opinion. With that, my overall rating does come out to be a 5.75. So, take that for what it's worth. Um, like I said, I think you take out those two matches that you have a pretty forgettable WrestleMania. So definitely taking a step back, WrestleMania 17 through 19. That had kind of stepped it up in terms of overall what they would deliver. But yeah, it still has, I think the highs are pretty high, and obviously the main event being the highlight for me. But then you still have, trying to get out of that Attitude Era with the nightgown match and whatever that Brock and Goldberg match, whatever that was. Trying to steer away from those. So, with that, we will wrap this one up for WrestleMania 20. Obviously, we'll work on 21 next, so we'll see kind of where we go from here. But for that, WrestleMania 20 review has been completed. If you disagree with anything we put out here, or have any comments in terms of what your favorite match was, please let us know in the comments below. Obviously, we very much appreciate any engagement, including a like and subscribe. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.